Hello ladies and gentlemen and everything in between. Today I wanted to talk about a movie that the internet's kind of been ripping to shreds over the past few days. The live-action American Death Note adaptation that released on Netflix a few days ago. Now, before I get started talking about the movie itself, I do want to put everything out there. I watched the Death Note anime for the first time a few months ago, so that is still relatively fresh in my mind. I did my best to judge this movie based on its own merit, but you do deserve to know that that bias probably will slip through. Now that I've said that, I want to start by saying that this film's story is very different from the anime. I don't have a problem with that by itself. While I greatly enjoy what the anime was, I appreciate taking a look at source material and deciding to take a slightly new direction. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that this movie isn't good. So, why is that? Well, for starters, while they definitely wanted to take the story in a different direction, it kind of seems like they didn't know what that direction was. There are times when it feels like Death Note wants to be a campy, over-the-top horror flick. There are times when it seems like it wants to be an edgy, R-rated teen romance drama. There are times when it wants to be the detective thriller that it's supposed to be. This constant jumping back and forth between tones is pretty disorienting, and ultimately results in the at least 3 movies that they're trying to make here not being able to reach their true potential. They had to tell a story a little bit differently if they wanted to fit it into their hour and 41-minute runtime, but writing the story like this doesn't even allow them to make the excuse of trying to squeeze 18.5 hours of anime into an hour and a half. It just leaves them with no one to blame but themselves for choking the movie to death with their sloppily written and horrendously paced narrative. Another huge problem with Death Note is its cast. Not to say that it's bad across the board, in fact, the vast majority of its supporting cast is very, very good. Willem Dafoe is a fantastic Ryuk. Shea Wiggum does a great job as Light's father, and Lakeith Stanfield is very good at portraying Elle's mannerisms. The vast majority of these characters have a far different dynamic than they do in the original, but with what they are given, they do a really, really good job. The issue lies with the leads. Nat Wolff as Light, and Margaret Qualley as Mia, his love interest and partner in crime. I'll start with the former since his sins far outweigh those of the latter. This boy does not know how to act. Period. End of story. He does not deliver lines like a person would. He does not seem to understand any way to convey emotion besides moderately annoyed angst. And every time he screams in fear, I couldn't help but laugh because he looks like a marionette, mouth agape and flailing around. Many of the same can be said for Margaret Qualley, but what kills it even more is the fact that these two have no chemistry whatsoever. They don't even remotely look like they like each other or even really give a shit about the things they're setting out to do. The fact that they are surrounded and outnumbered by actors that are actually trying to do their best with what they are given accentuates how bad their performances are. The movie is just kind of a mess all around. It's trying to squeeze 2 extra things that Death Note isn't, leaving almost no room for the thing that Death Note is, that it also kind of tries to do in a way. The thing that I loved so much about the Death Note anime was its complexity and the way that it explored 2 dueling minds over an intellectual battlefield. This movie simplifies each narrative that it tries to explore until there's almost nothing left of them, and leaves you wondering if the characters that are there in almost every instance even have minds. The story's pace alternates between breakneck speeds and painfully slow. The original music sounds like it was scored by a vibrating cell phone, and the licensed music feels incredibly out of place. The art direction and camera work are decent, but they only fit what's going on screen about 1/3 of the time. The supporting cast is really kinda great. But the movie focuses so heavily upon the leads, and half of the leads are a character that doesn't even feel like she should exist in the context of this movie's story, let alone the story that it's trying to adapt. And they both give incredibly dry and uninterested performances. I was hoping when I saw the previews for this movie that I could say that it was okay, but it just shouldn't be called Death Note, because that's not exactly what it is. But sitting here having watched it, I honestly don't think it should have been made. Given more time, or at least better direction, it could have been something moderately enjoyable. But it's just too sloppy the way it is to justify its release. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you thought of the Death Note movie if you've seen it in the comments below, and if you haven't, let me know what you thought of my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take it easy.